Hey there, Patriots. This is True Outlaw Patriot coming at you again. Just came across this before. Gonna leave my thoughts on it. Uh, but just quickly, I want to thank the new subscribers today that came in. Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for checking out my videos. I'm getting a lot of views. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, leave a thumbs up, and pass it along. Came across this video. I know yesterday on my last video I said that I was like 95% at the point that I was in favor of saying, you know what, I'm 95% sure that this whole fire in Maui wasn't an act of nature. After watching this video, I am 100% sure. I'm 100% certain that, you know what, in my eyes, this wasn't nature that did this. This definitely has all the makings of intentional. And if I had to guess, and I know a lot of people have been throwing it around on the internet, this was definitely done in a certain way that it shouldn't happen. It almost, a lot of it defies like the laws of science and physics when it comes to a lot of things, mainly with all the metals and different materials that are popping up where people are recording certain things, and it doesn't make sense. So if it doesn't make sense, that means because it's the answers that they're given are not the right answers. They're not real. They're false. So looking at this video, it reminded me of something when I used to do a lot of camping, and I'll explain that when I get to that point in the video. But once again, you know, here's another one for people to think, and it's something that people really need to think about. Because, in my opinion, like I said yesterday, I truly believe that this was done for one purpose only, and that is straight up the root of all evil, money. You know, just straight up money, and control, power. And people say, well, how much can they gain from this? When you're looking at something that wants to be implemented that is going to affect the world from one certain area, you're looking at all the money you could ever think of in all the wrong hands. But anyway, let's get this video going. It's going to be a little lengthy, but I'm going to try to cut it short, and then everybody can see for themselves and make their own judgments. But here we go.
Right? Yeah, it's almost like there's an incinerator nearby and they just dropped the car off.
Right, so I'm going to turn the camera on what we're walking up on right now.
Now the first thing, I know I'm going to cut it short real quick. One of the first things right here, they caught my eye. I know a lot of that stuff there is burnt, but this one patch of grass right here, burnt I should say, caught my eye right here. There is another section that I want to show when they get to it, but just pay attention to that, and pay attention to this patch right here when he pans with the camera as he's walking by it.
I want you to notice there's a vehicle that's been here since the beginning. It wasn't dropped off here, obviously.
Look at the chair's not melted.
You can see here there's
it's sitting in the middle.
This is the highest.
All right, this right here, to me, that's bothersome right there. Obviously, it had to be a car backing up, but it just seems like the fire's on top. And it's funny how this right here is all burnt, but yet you got all this dry weed not burnt. But let's continue.
It's the burn gut right here. It did not cross the highway. If you look over here, this is the bypass. You can see none of that grass is burned over there. So start to draw some logical conclusions.
Oh, look at it.
We're going to show you some more things as we're walking along here.
How did that not?
Now this is a pine cone. I've seen them burned before. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have. when they, they're very sturdy. It takes it takes a lot to, like, catch it on fire. But when the heat is strong enough to melt it and not burn it, that means the heat is not as intense as it should be. It's just gonna melt it, flatten it out, and that's it, which shows that this fire came and went. I mean, just, burnt whatever it could and turned off. I mean, why it didn't catch fire and just keep going? These are questions that, that a lot of people are asking, because you see it in a lot of areas of Maui. A lot of, like the fire was skipping, but that's almost impossible for the fire to skip like that, when supposedly all the winds were coming in from behind this fire, up from the mountains. They said it should have just kept eating right through, but it didn't. So here we go.
Disappear. If
this melted, how did that cone not completely disappear? Because if you look at this vehicle, and I want you to notice the burn, the amount of grass, as you can see, that burned in the char marks. This car is basically completely surrounded by gravel, and you can see a small little flames right here when this grass burned. Yet when you turn and look right in this direction, besides seeing Dylan, my technical cameraman, you can see this car. And for all you scientists out there that have been sending me images and you're asking me if they're real, I'm here to tell you, in Jesus' name, what we're showing you is real, live on YouTube. So if you enjoy content like this, we ask you to please immediately like this, share this, and subscribe to the channel. Why? Because you are our only hope of getting this out to the world through the YouTube algorithm. This is a tire that is gone. These are the braids of steel inside the tire. Look at this particular rim.
Once again, like I said in yesterday's video, look at all the burn marks, the charred marks, as if it was just sitting in a fire. Like in a campfire, when you take a metal can, throw it in there, you can leave it there the whole weekend. You go check it out at the end of the weekend after you turn off that fire, it may not have melted because it's steel, but it will have these heavy burn marks, these brown, I mean, all over it, these brown burn marks on it. Like if you took a blowtorch to it. But here we go.
Is it safe to say these are aluminum?
look at the windshield. What's that?
Are these aluminum?
Yeah, that's cast aluminum wheels.
Cast aluminum wheel, you can see it melted.
And the windshield on the inside.
Look at the windshield. That is a windshield right there that is completely melted. We have some jumper cables in the back of the vehicle, or we have some cast aluminum.
Now this is the part right here that I want to talk about. If anybody seen these on their cars, you know they're aluminum. They're aluminum for a reason, so they don't rust or anything like that, because that's your rack on top, you put stuff to it. This turns to dust in his hands. Check this out.
Aluminum here, that's pulverized.
It's just dust.
How is that possible?
Okay, when I seen that, it reminded me of one thing, and this is why on my video yesterday I said that it looks like there was like a concentrated form of energy, or almost like a blowtorch, and I'll explain why. If anybody has gone camping, anybody knows the Coleman propane lanterns. When you buy them, you have to put your Coleman fuel inside of it, and inside the lantern there's like these little white, like cylindrical filaments that you will put inside, and they're soft, but it's made out of a material like a fiber. And when you turn on your lantern, you spark it up, that the fuel burns into that and it glows, and that's how you get your light. It gets really bright depending on how high you put it. Now let's say you're camping for about a week, you can probably go through 2 of them, because they have a very high heat. They can absorb high heat, so you'll probably go in a weekend. You could get through 1. You can have 1 for the weekend. It won't burn up on you. You figure if you're there for a week, you're probably going to go through 2. Now, if anybody knows that when that happens, many times when you go to switch it out, because it's happened to me many a times. When you go to grab it, it'll turn to dust. A lot of times it'll just turn to dust. So you just take off the little band that's holding it, take it off, put a new one. And if you think about why, it's because it's made to hold a lot of high heat, but after a while, it's a concentrated spraying of that fuel. I mean, you can hear it. As soon as you turn on your lantern, you hear that fuel coming out, and it lights up that filament. When I seen this, it reminded me of that. So, I've seen... I mean, I used to do a lot of scrapping for metals, and many a times, certain metals we had to like try to get off of certain items that we found. So we had to like, get our burn barrel and throw them inside, and burn off whatever. It could have been rubber, it could have been some sort of wood, some sort of heavy plastic, and then you let it all burn down, and sometimes it's there for hours, burning. You're adding more wood to keep burning until finally you get what you want: the copper, the aluminum, whatever have you. Okay? If the fire wasn't behind this vehicle, it looks like it started up here, and there was wind blowing. That means that, is there a possibility with the wind blowing that heavy, that with the gasoline burning in here, it was a constant burning? Yes. But it's not hot enough to turn aluminum into powder. Okay? And look at how all this is burnt up top. Now, of course, they're going to say the flames went up top. Granted. But this vehicle is in one spot. It's on gravel. It's in one spot. And let's just say somebody turned this on fire. If the fires weren't coming from behind this vehicle across the road, how did this fire start here? How did this fire start on this one vehicle right in this one spot? And I've been noticing in a lot of the videos, a lot of areas where they don't want people to film, you'll see a lot of these cars in individual areas by themselves, and you're thinking, well, then how did this car catch fire? It almost seems as if somebody went around just torching cars in a certain way and just going around starting fires, because fire doesn't act like that. Fire doesn't jump. Yeah, fire will jump. Let's say it'll if a tree is burning in one street and wind's blowing, it's possible that if the fire is really big, it will make like a, how can I say, like, I'll just say like a fire trail. But for this vehicle to burn the way it did, to turn aluminum into dust, this is cast aluminum. Okay? How is that possible for that to happen? Unless, like I said in my video yesterday, that some energy came from up top shooting down. And it basically just, it's like taking a magnifying glass. If you go out into the sun and you put it on a piece of paper, okay, you'll burn a hole in it. As soon as you take that magnifying glass off, if the whole piece of paper hasn't caught fire, if there's wind, it'll blow it off, and what do you have? You have a burn hole on the paper. And the more I look at these videos, the more I'm just realizing and, telling myself, you know what? No, there's no way these things could happen, because I'm looking at it on the smallest scale, and I'm not a scientist, but I'm looking at it, I'm going to use the term loosely, I'm looking at it on a small science project scale, like the smallest scientifically, possible way, that you can look at it. Obviously, this is on a bigger scale. But it doesn't mean that this car is not the piece of paper I'm talking about, and they just had a bigger magnifying glass, or like a lot of people are throwing out there, that it's a DEW, So once I seen this, there's no more doubt in my head that, because I was hoping, well, maybe let's just give it at least 5% benefit of the doubt that this is really something other than what we think it is. That it's really true that this started because of hurricane winds and stuff. But this is it. This put the icing on the cake for me. You know, this is just something that it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense anymore. And it shouldn't make sense. It wasn't meant to make sense. Because they got sloppy. Now, what I find also funny, and you'll see in a minute, I'll show you, just something I need to throw in, the way they're cordoning off a lot of the area. They're putting up fencing and gates and nobody can go through, and no drones, no reporters, nothing like that. But yet, they're leaving these cars and stuff out in the open. And then when people go to investigate them and take pictures, all of a sudden, cops show up and they're being told they're not allowed to take pictures or video, which is what's going to happen in a few minutes. So that right there, in my opinion, is a coordinated effort. They won't take the items out of the way, but at the same time, they just want you to ignore it and keep walking. So that right there tells me that everybody's involved. The police department, the sheriff's department, the governor, the mayor, the police, everybody. They're all in on it. Whatever it is, they're all in on it. But let's continue a little more.
For a grass fire that did not come from this direction, because you can see there's nothing that's been burned over here. What could cause that type of destruction when you have a grass fire on this side that obviously didn't connect? But even if it was a grass fire,
and it's still only half burned. I mean,
yeah, you can see there's even some grass over here that's still standing. It's not even been burned. So even about down below, directly below this, you can see some wood fence posts that were burned, but you can see all that grass is still good. So how do you get this car this hot? In the comments section, I need to hear from you guys. Honestly, I need you here in the comments section. There's some smart people, and I'm not talking about, I'm talking about some intelligent people out there that understand physics, science, melting points, not the nonsense people. We need to just silence the nonsense for a moment. We need some real scientists, some real professors around the world to check in right now and help us understand what phenomenon, right?
Yeah, it's an anomaly or whatever you want to call that word.
Right, but this is just one vehicle. This is what we're seeing in all.
Oh, there's the window down there in the middle.
Where's the window?
Down in the crack.
Oh, you can see the melted window down in the crack.
It just dripped down in there.
It's just dripped into the, you can see that. I don't know if the camera's picking that up for you. But I've had people reach out to me from around the world asking for these types of images, detailed images. And by the way, thankful that the sheriffs have left. We asked them if I've said, hey, if you guys love your country, allow us to come in here and grab these images. And they've left, and I'm so thankful. And I told the sheriff, said, hey, I'm thankful for you guys because you've sworn to protect the Constitution. You've got more power than anybody in the...
And thank God they left the area.
And thank God they left the area. Yeah, and we're so thankful that they did. They had these stern looks on our faces, man, because we're just like, what law prevents us from having access? Why can the media not have access to this? Why is there a fence? Why are there checkpoints? This is melted copper?
Yeah,
these are the jumping
so
cables.
what people are familiar with seeing, this is how hot it got. This literally destroyed metal, and I mean the spring had no integrity at all. It was just no resistance.
You can see this. What do you think this is? Is this the tranny?
Wow.
What is that?
And if anybody is, thinking, well, maybe, the fire did get that hot. If you have access, take a trip to your local junkyard, your vehicle boneyard. You'll see, I mean, I hate to say it that way, but you'll see that there are some cars that they brought in there that, have caught fire. You always hope that nobody, was in it. But more times than none, when they dump those cars off, you'll see the tires are still on there melted. You'll see the rims are still on there. And if the rims are good, they take them off so they can resell them, whatever the case is. And, like I said, I used to do a lot of scrapping, especially in Florida. And, you notice these things. You look at them and, you look at them for a few minutes to try to analyze, man, I wonder how bad this fire was, or, what was the case, like what happened. And you don't see things like this. You see a burnt car, you see, and some of them have busted windows, might have one window left, but you don't see things really melted on it, like these rims. And this is something that everybody has been doing these videos. They've been mentioning all the melted aluminum. It takes a lot to keep that aluminum melted, in a liquid form before it starts cooling off. Now, it's safe to say that the fire came and went. That's why it liquefied and then it got, it cooled down. But if that's the case, if these winds were blowing the way they said, then this fire should have been out way before these rims melted. Now, again, is there a chance that with the gasoline burning and the constant wind blowing, it was almost like a blowtorch? Yeah, I guess that's a possibility. But nobody has come forward. The authorities won't let anybody in, which I'm very surprised that there are, a team of investigators all over Hawaii. I'm very, very surprised. Hasn't anybody noticed that? No FBI agents on the scene. Unless they're inside that perimeter that has been closed off, fine. But what about on the outside of the perimeter, like this area? These are questions that people need to ask. Amongst, 1,000 other questions that are not being answered. But let's continue.
The aluminum?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it had an aluminum gas tank.
But look at all this. Came all the way out here.
Yeah, that's not just heating and melting. That's liquefying, which is
Liquefying, that's a whole other
that's
level.
probably like 1,500 to 2,000 degrees. Look,
So-
that looks like a cell phone.
Oh my gosh, yeah. What do you guys think? Talk to me. Share the video. Call Joe Rogan. Right?
Yeah.
Somebody call somebody with way more social media clout than I have. And we're not... The Rock. Where's The Rock at? Where's the PGA at? Where's the people at? Where are the people that love this country? They're going to help us solve this mystery and are going to allow us to have access to what they're doing over there. There's still a TFR, temporary flight restriction, still in place to this day. We cannot fly a drone over that. We've been in touch with the FAA since the first day. We have provided a statement of work on company letterhead saying that we want to get a drone in the sky. Why? Because we want to start watching these hillsides at night for fire. Yes, we might see what they're doing in that town, but we also want to monitor this because we had a fire start up yesterday in Ka'anapali. Whatever it is that caused this, which we don't know, is still trying to cause havoc on this island as we speak. So this threat's not over. The story's not finished. And
Definitely not. And what I find a total disservice from the authorities, the government, the authorities, the powers that be, is that the way they're trying to keep everyone who has lost so much away from the area. And if they were tall standing structure buildings, of course you don't want anybody in there but the professionals. They got to make sure they got to get the right people in there, the right personnel to say, okay, this building's got to come down. But if everything was flattened as it is, what is it that they're trying to hide? And if they're in that perimeter that they closed off with the gates and the walls and all that, so nobody could look in and there's no drones, I would hate to think that they're doing a massive cleanup, because the last thing the people that have lost so much, if they have to go back and find that area looking like an empty parking lot, that is going to affect so many people mentally on like so many levels. You haven't even given them time to grieve or even time to have closure, which can take years. And yet the authorities are pushing back on the natives, on the citizens. And it's unfair. And I don't know if I mentioned it yesterday, but I'll mention it again anyway. Where are all the reporters and where are all the people from all the other parts of the island asking questions? Has anybody noticed, again, I'll say it, there is no news coming from all the other parts of the islands. Not from the citizens, there's no interviews, there's no media asking questions like, how do you feel? it just seems like it's being controlled and contained. It doesn't even seem like it. You can see that it is. It's being controlled and contained by the authorities. Mum's the word. No media. You know, no drone flying. Nobody can go back. You know, how many times, and anybody that watches this video, please leave a comment, and I know you're going to agree. Every time there's a catastrophe, some sort of disaster, after it's calm and settled, people are going back. I mean, you see it all the time in California. Every time there's a wildfire and houses burn down after the fact, you see people going back to their houses to try to recover what they can. The authorities hardly ever stop them. They only stop them when it's something that's like, you know, if something's still burning, another storm is on its way right behind it, or it's a tall structure where they're like, you can't go in there, but they usually let people go back and scour through the remains of what they own, their houses, their businesses. What makes Maui so much more different? It reeks of a cover-up. It reeks of, you know what? We need to get rid of as much of the, like they did 9/11. I was back home in New York when it happened. I mean, they tried, but they got busted when they started doing massive cleanups way before the authorities got there. You know, they needed hundreds, you know, of specialists there. And they just started scooping everything up and dumping it in ships and sending it straight to China. And people were like, you can't do that. For all you know, I mean, obviously there was remains of body parts and all that underneath all that rubble. How are you just going to scoop it up and start dumping it in garbage containers, big metal garbage containers, then shipping it off? I mean, and this was like rapidly they were doing it. Why? They were trying to get rid of as much evidence as they could. And this is why I feel 100% after watching this, and there's a little more, that they're covering their tracks. They're getting rid of, they're basically cleaning up the crime scene. That's basically what you can call it. And my gut tells me that there's only one of two reasons why they're lying about the death count. Because they know it's in the thousands, or, and I know I'll probably get a lot of flack for this, and I pray to God I'm wrong. It doesn't, it's not gonna ease any pain either way. But it's either all those children perished, or if not all of them that are missing, or a big portion of them have been taken. Because mums is still the word. They're still stuck on a certain number of fatalities that makes no sense. There are still thousands of people missing, men, women, and children, whether people want to hear that or not. When this thing first came out, when it first started, they said that there was a population of about 13,000 in that area. And now I don't know if it was that one specific area or all of Maui. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist or a team of scientists to figure out a head count. And if they're shutting down the media, they're shutting down communications, they're shutting down cell phones, they're shutting down any kind of Wi-Fi, how is anybody supposed to get a definite number if they're not letting people communicate to find out who may be on another part of the island, who could still be there, who was in a hospital, whatever the case is? How are people supposed to communicate? The answer to that is they don't want them to communicate. Like I said yesterday, the truth is going to come out. All it's going to take is that one person that was at the right place at the right time, had their phone on, and is going to show something that person probably hasn't even noticed themselves, but it will come out. Because if this was an act of evil, it's on a grand scale, and the light will be shown on it. It will be exposed. You know? But let's continue a little more.
It's because God Almighty has allowed us to have this type of access
Amen.
to this piece of evidence right now on the side of this highway that's public, and the sheriffs were nice enough to leave us alone. They said we couldn't park here, but why is it that the media is not given access? Is there third-party independent oversight to what's going on? Why is the deputy sheriff, the chief of police still the coroner? There's so many unanswered questions. but I hope that this brings some insight into what limited things we are able to see right now.
Right here. There we go.
And quite frankly, this does not make sense. Even if I didn't understand anything about temperature or fires, any logical person can look at this and go, hey,
Oh
man,
my Lord, look at the motor.
how did this grass fire cause this car to completely melt? Look at this look at this motor.
Look at the way this falls apart.
The manifold
Where's the manifold?
right here.
I know, where is it?
It's dust.
It almost seems as if the fire was from underneath burning. I mean, none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense the way the way these cars, they're pulverized. Like, I mean, it's almost as if it was a burst of energy. Just hit it and kept moving, hit it hard enough to pulverize it, and then it went into flames. If anybody's watched any of the 9/11 videos, and I know a lot of people to this day, they still say, that, they would go with a conspiracy theory. There is one video that's out that shows one of the towers, and it shows like a big I-beam. Those things are steel. I mean, the thing's got to be 40, 50, 60 feet long. And you see it just turn to dust on camera. The wind blows it and it just turns to dust. How is that possible? So many theories around 9/11, the towers. And I seen it with my own eyes, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. How did that came out of nowhere? And I'm looking at this stuff and I'm just like, this stuff is pulverized. It's like, almost like a burst of energy that hit it from up top and just broke down the least strong metal, but it still takes a lot of heat to turn these metals into liquid. How did they go? They didn't even liquefy. A lot of it didn't even liquefy. A lot of it just turned to dust. How is that possible? But let's continue.
And then look at that push pop in there. Completely intact.
What?
Completely intact.
Well, maybe someone came here and had a
Maybe
kid
they'd have
taking
to throw
pictures
that-
or
I
something.
don't know. It looks like it endured a fire. I don't know.
That is weird though. So this is just pulver. It's literally.
That's the battery.
Oh gosh.
That's lead.
That is lead. That is lead. Oh boy, I gotta get that off me.
Yeah. Might not be damaging now. And here's the glass from the lights.
Again, I can't overstate this enough. You guys got to help out right now. We got to get this out to the world.
This is unreal.
Whatever you can do within your power, which is your little buttons. If your fingers aren't bleeding by the end of tonight from sharing this type of content and people that are bringing you the truth, of course you can give to our fund that we've created so you can keep this type of reporting going and help the people of Maui. It's maui.lfg.org. You can go to that website if you have a need, if you have a resource, and if you want to give, go to maui.lfg.org. We're out here.
There you go, people. If you can do something, anything, I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter how much. They need help, and that's why my video I said yesterday that, the people of Hawaii, they need help. They need everybody's help. Whether it's passing the videos along to make sure that they can be taken out of circulation, to giving money. Maybe friends and family out there, make phone calls, find out what's going on, see if they can give information, take that information, pass it along to somebody else. I mean, because this is just phenomenal. I mean, it's just totally phenomenal the way this is. It truly is, but let's continue.
Every day in the field doing what we feel, honestly, God's calling us to do. And here comes the cops. Oh boy.
Yeah, now this part right here is pretty interesting, and this is why I feel that that law enforcement's in on it. Maybe not every single person in particular, but the higher ups, they're definitely in on something because, well, you'll see what happens.
Well, if they arrest us, it's going to be on.
Get a ride from them.
We can get a ride from them. Oh my gosh. No, it's an ambulance. I think we're okay. Okay.
Yeah, this is just beyond unbelievable. So, something that's why I didn't really want to say anything while you were talking.
Sure.
But if you look,
Yeah.
how does, and this was in front, so what's in there to get that hot to melt that?
From this little grass fire right here, you mean? Right?
Yeah. I mean,
mean-
because you know how hard it is to burn stuff inside without oxygen and like in an enclosure.
Closed area.
Yeah, so for it to go inside there.
So I'm just going to put you on the spot. You got any theories?
I haven't seen anything that can do this yet, not personally.
Really? So even in all the outlandish things that you've heard on the internet, is there like
I've seen stuff in movies that could do this.
Right. I have scientists telling me that this is Star Wars.
Yeah, stuff like that.
This is Star Wars level
Like the
stuff.
Death Star, like pointed
Correct.
its gun at us, and
Correct. This is like legitimate scientists. They're
Yeah.
telling me, Eric, tell me if these photos and these images I'm seeing are real, because I don't think they can be because it breaks science.
yeah, it's like
something
the.
that-
See, there you go. And I didn't take my personal opinion from them, but I'm glad they mentioned it because this is what a lot of people are talking about. They're looking at these things and and they're saying that it doesn't make sense how something it's like an enigma, right? Was it a riddle wrapped in whatever you want to call it? But you're looking at it, and anybody that knows anything about metal or cars. I mean, you would think like a auto mechanic would know a lot about stuff like this because they deal with with different cars, and they have to deal with different types of heat when they're working on cars. They know what's going to burn what if they're trying to solder something or whatever the case is. They're like, okay, so technically a lot of mechanics, they're almost like scientists in a way. They need to know these things. You can't just go and work on a car, especially if you're going to do electrical or any kind of welding or anything like that. You got to know what's going to catch fire, what you're going to burn, what's going to overheat. I mean, just getting a simple wire change, in your engine, you got to buy the right wiring. You go to Pep Boys or whatever, and you ask them, they're going to say, no, you need this hose for that because the heat is heat tempered and, it gets really hot. So I'll take the word for, for a mechanic, from a mechanic, I should say, when they say, no, this doesn't make sense how all this burnt up. So
that's never been, that they don't understand.
Yeah, definitely like the Death Star pointed its little gun at this thing.
So, I mean, again, I don't believe in this stuff personally, and I
That's
don't know
why
if you do, but could a direct energy weapon do something like this to your knowledge?
I've seen flashlights on TV that burn stuff. That's all I've seen.
Yeah.
But
So who
personally,
knows?
I don't know. No,
Because every time I hear that, I just check out. I'm going to be
Right.
honest with you.
Yeah, until I see it with my own eyes,
Right.
I'm very skeptical.
That's the first thing you told me when we met this morning.
Yeah.
I've never met you before, and
Yeah.
you just reached out to me and said there's some stuff I've seen that you need to see.
Yeah.
But the first thing you said is you don't believe in all that conspiracy garbage. You need to see stuff with your own eyes, and
Right.
then you kind of go from there.
Yeah, when you see stuff like this, it makes your head turn sideways like a dog when he, hears that funny sound.
Right. By the way, that day that you were in the wind, you said that you heard some sounds that were similar
Yeah.
to a tornado. Tell me a little bit
Yeah,
more about
6 months ago, there was a really big tornado in Texas, and I was just over 100 yards away from it. And that tornado, our RV was like floating, and I opened the door, and I heard this distinctive sound, and it sounded like almost like a high-rise building on a spin cycle. Just whoo. It was a scary, eerie sound because it was like at that time that I heard it, it wasn't a serious wind that I could feel, but it was like it was something that you could just tell it had power behind it. And I heard that same sound the day of the fire when I was directing traffic 3 times.
Yeah.
And it did knock me up against the rail, and I'm 240 pounds, so I was a foot away from the rail, and me and the guy who was standing next to just got totally slammed against the guardrail.
Yeah.
And it was, you could almost literally see the wind and the debris spinning.
Well, almost like a tornado or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been on scene since the moment this thing started. You have a little motorcycle that I know you love, and you've been driving all over the place. I know you're shocking a lot of these bradas. They know you, these guardsmen. And hats off to them. Thank you for their service and what they're doing.
Yeah.
What, if you were to list the top 5 things that you see so far that are kind of fishy, that don't make sense to you, besides obviously the bombshell that we just revealed to the world, any other notes or bullet points that you think were just don't make sense or that just don't add up?
Well, for the people to hear, because I know there's a lot of internet stuff going on, the communities are being fed, they're given water and food in abundance. There's no lack of.
Okay.
And FEMA was never stopping that, because I heard some stuff about, they were putting a halt to that.
Well, they did block supplies coming in at one point, but anyway.
But not where I was, so
Okay.
I didn't see any of that. I never saw any fire trucks.
Did you see anyone spraying a fire at any time? Any water coming out of the fire truck?
No.
Yeah.
And then the police department would it was like, they were just running around like chickens, just had no idea what was going on or what to do.
Do you believe, and this is a big question, the police were directing traffic around down power lines?
Yeah. No, they weren't, actually. I was.
You were, okay. So in your opinion, and I know we love our police, man, and I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, right?
It's just...
What is it that the police were doing? Were they just doing how do you explain what they were doing? Is there any explanation?
One of them said that they were following the orders of the chief of the fire department. And I was like, okay. So, because I was trying to ask a question about how they justified routing the residents into the neighborhood where the fire was headed. And he goes, well, it's up to the chief of police. And I go,
chief of the police? Or the
chief of fire department. I'm sorry. Yeah, thanks for great.
Island is, that's what I heard.
We heard that he was off island. That's what we've heard. We don't know.
Yeah, so I don't even know, but that's what the cop told me.
That's what the cop told you.
Yeah.
That's the rumor we've heard is that the emergency management director was on Oahu. That's confirmed. It didn't fly back until the next day or the day after. Chief of the fire department, we were told, was gone, and also the governor was off and not in the state.
I did.
Now, in one of my earlier videos, there was a gentleman that was interviewed who said that he was with the fire chief, and I believe that what they're saying, because on that interview, he said that he was with the fire chief. They were, I believe they got on one of the roofs of the houses. They were looking, and he said that the fire chief said, "I'm packing and I'm leaving." And the guy that they were interviewing said that when the fire chief told him that, he was like, "Well, I'm packing and leaving too." So it's kind of strange to hear that, which means that he wasn't on the island, but yet the people on the ground were saying that they were being told by the fire chief to do certain things. And it's like, how did you leave your post? If that is true, why would the fire chief leave his post? In other words, leave the island. And I've watched a lot of videos, and you don't see any fire trucks blasting water, and there are people claiming that they started, but all the water was shut off. So they could not refill the trucks, they could not tap into fire hydrants or whatever the case is. That much we know is real. That much we know. So that's just something else to add to this big bucket of chum. I mean, I'm trying to keep it as clean as possible. I mean, because you would think that the fire chief would stay behind and coordinate everybody and find out where the fire is going. We need to get here. And he says that there was police running around in the area that he was at, but yet people are saying that police were stopping people from Front Street from getting out of the way. I seen another video of a man and a woman that drove through, and I made a video about it, I believe, where they were able to go past where the down power lines were, but then there's talk out there that once the power lines went down, the power was off. And if you look at a lot of the videos with the power lines down, you don't see any electrical going through them. Usually when power lines are down, you see these wires bouncing all over the place and throwing sparks. You don't see that. Okay? You don't see that. And it's strange that these power lines are down, and yet the person that's in charge of the power company, or one of the people that, you know, that knows what they're talking about, said that they have like a wind factor type of deal, that when the power will cut off at a certain wind speed, let's say 60, 70 miles an hour, because they know that up until that wind speed, the power lines are okay. If it gets anything above that, they automatically start cutting the power down, because they know the wires will start touching because they're swaying with the wind. And they know that's when there's going to be problems. So if all these power lines were down on the road, you can see it in all the videos. In a lot of videos, they were down on the road. That means these wires are touching. There is no power. So why were the police officers telling people on Front Street that they could not get out because of down power lines, but yet they were there themselves? Something else to think about. But we'll continue a little more before I cut it off.
I did talk to Hawaiian Electric, and one of the guys, he sounded like a very intelligent guy. He said that the power grid for Lahaina was rated at 60 miles per hour.
Well,
And the protocol,
this is what I'm talking about here.
anytime there's a high wind advisory, protocol is to kill power. Anytime they hear a high wind advisory that's closer to the maximum wind velocity that it can withstand.
Yeah.
And he said that was not met. And he told me to my face.
They
So-
never met.
They
that
never.
much.
Yeah, he said. Well, it was said that it wasn't turned off, and that because I asked him, I go, well, is the termite infestation at the bottom of the poles that fell? He goes, no. He goes, that doesn't matter. It's the fact that when the wind blows at such a high rate that it causes. This is what he told me. That it causes the power lines to sway back and forth, and when they touch, that shorts out the transformer, and it blows the transformer and blows embers all over the dry grass. And that's what starts the fire.
Right, because the highest point that we could find on aerial imagery was right below the substation on
Okay.
Lahaina Luna. That's the
Okay.
highest point. So if the wind is blowing straight towards the ocean, east to west, then it would make logical sense
Right,
that
and
the highest
especially
point.
if it's running parallel with the wind, yeah.
Correct. The highest point was right
Or
below
not
that
parallel, but
substation,
across.
which is right sort of below the solar field next to Lahaina Luna High
Right.
School. That's the highest point that we could
And
find.
I think we're going up there
We are.
from here, yeah.
So any other things that you saw?
So there you go. So if the power lines are down, you know, the authorities were saying that they couldn't let them through because of the down power lines. But people were getting through. People were forcing their way through. No electrical current going through. Which means that they were stopping people. Why? Matter of fact, I got to find the video again when they asked the police chief. Okay? He's doing a press conference. Somebody had the balls to come out and say, listen, why were people being stopped from leaving? And he ended it right there and just walked right off the podium. Why? Why would you do that? Why couldn't you answer that? You know, the basic questions that people want to know, which are the main questions. Why did you stop traffic from flowing? Why weren't you guys in a frenzy just passing traffic? This is the way I see it. If these power lines were down, a lot of, they obviously were not stopping traffic from moving. They were down, but they were not crisscrossing the roads where you couldn't get through no matter what. And if you could, and there was no power, human instincts would be, get out of your vehicle and make it on foot. Get out. They supposedly were not letting anybody even do that. They were just telling them, turn around. And people were complaining like, the fire's coming this way, why would we go back? And they were being told that it's coming from higher up. Who are the higher ups? And this is why I believe that this was all it was coordinated, because the chief of police has no answer, the mayor has no answer, and the governor has no answer. Which means that if it came from a higher up, it came up higher up than them. Who is higher than those three people in Maui? who is in control, that can keep the governor, the mayor, and the chief of police hush hush. But anyway, it's a long video. There's a lot more to it. Look it up. Everybody knows this man. Hawaii Real Estate, I believe it is. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. Give it a thumbs up. Pass it around. If there's any way you can help the people in Hawaii, please do so if you can. If you can't, prayers. As always, that's always the best thing. You know, and until then, stay vigilant, keep praying, and keep praying for each other. Peace.